I'm gonna talk to you like an adult. Is that okay with you? Do you have any idea why I made you team captain this year? Now, obviously, it's not because you're our best player. Sean was faster, Lottie's got better footwork by a mile, and Thaisa...
Is this a pep talk?
When things get tough out there, those girls are gonna need someone to guide them.
A friendship doesn't matter. Love doesn't matter. They're just things that we use to pretend we aren't gonna end up like dead cabin guy, like rotted out husks and some bullshit ad. Hey. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just hungry. Take this. It's your last piece.
Don't worry. You need it more than me. We're gonna get through this together. Just take it.
Investigation into the cause of the accident remains preliminary. The crash site was over 600 miles.
In 1996, a high school girls soccer team from Muskeg High School was on their way to nationals. Unfortunately, this flight was never destined to actually make it. The flight path had left the plane veering off course about 600 miles north, and everyone on that plane was presumed lost or dead. Survivors of the crash were out there for around 19 months, and upon their rescue, their numbers had dwindled a lot less than to those who had entered onto the plane that day. Who were the members of the Yellowjackets soccer team that got stranded out there in the wilderness? What was their story, and what was their role to play in the girls' survival out there? In this series of videos, I hope to break down each one of the Yellowjackets soccer team that has had a bit of a narrative element or enough context to piece together what their story could actually be. As well as if their character is still around by the time of shooting this, I will be predicting where their character could go. That being said, hello wilderness survivors, fellow mudbeards, and Yellowjackets if you're watching. And we're officially starting off on my new series of videos hoping to break down each one of the Yellowjackets. I'm going to be trying to release these leading up to season 3 finale, but there's a chance that it will actually go past that point. Either way, I'm really interested in diving into each one of these characters and kind of putting my own thoughts onto video form. But I'm sure there'll be many things I missed, so if you know any interesting facts or trivia about some of the characters or actors playing them, then feel free to let me know down in the comments. Either way, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it.
Oh, that's great.
Either way, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So for today's video, we're going to be going ahead and covering the character of Jackie. Brilliantly played by ellapurnell, Jackie is one of the characters whose role in this story is very much a misdirection. Anyone who's watched the series from the beginning can presumably see that Jackie would assumedly be the main character, considering how heavily she was shown in the main trailer and that she was the face of the girl on the main poster for the series. There's also some interesting observations some folks online made. Notice how each of the posters representing each season of the Yellowjackets could be a state of Jackie slowly deteriorating. It was easy to assume that we'd be following her journey. And seeing how the first few episodes are sort of choreographed, we could see that she is sort of laid out as the main character. Interestingly enough, we see that she is someone who is the team captain of the Yellowjackets soccer team. And while she's very much a girl's girl, she's also someone who is a very positive and passionate leader for everybody, sort of being like a camp counselor for the girls during times of need, as well as attempting to be a positive influence whenever conflict does arise. So you would think that this character's archetype being stranded in the wilderness was destined for some serious transformation. But what's interesting about her character is there's more to her than just this bubbly team captain personality. We see that her relationship with Jeff in the 96 timeline, it doesn't leave her the happiest or the most satisfied. She is struggling with some deep and unpleasant emotions, and we don't even get full narrative context for why that is. As the season plays out, we do get clues as to what happened and why she was so upset in the beginning of the series, but I think this was primarily shown to illustrate the depth to her character. Now cut to the crash. Interestingly enough, as soon as the crash takes place, her screen presence and narrative agency slowly starts to shift towards other characters. And throughout the first season, we see as she slowly becomes less and less impactful in the narrative and starts to almost become a background character. We see that all the girls are having a hard time adapting to surviving out in the wilderness, but Jackie isn't even trying. Jackie's a character who is finding each one of the elements out there a little bit uncomfortable, as well as the fact that throughout the first season, her role as team captain quickly disintegrates when faced with the wild. Without the societal structure or standards put in place to put her in the place of power that she was as team captain, the role of importance very much becomes what you can provide and contribute to your group. And Jackie physically does not contribute much. Except I guess technically her entire body, but that wasn't voluntary. See, while all the other girls have had histories or origin stories that lead them to potentially living as a cult in the wilderness, Jackie is a character who was never meant to be there. You could even argue she doesn't belong there. Interestingly enough, there is some narrative context to that. See, later on in season 3, when some hikers come down to the wilderness and stumble across the girls, one of the hikers had been very similar to Jackie in the fact that they were not meant to be out there. You can see with the mosquitoes and being surrounded by the wilderness, it was just not a comfortable setting for them. And if you follow the spiritual side of the show and you see Lottie as sort of the voice and or prophet for the wilderness and what it wants, then you can see how his outcome in season 3 is indicative of how Jackie herself also did not belong there.
Hey, what did you do? They don't belong. It doesn't want them here.
And how the wilderness will treat those who don't belong there. Point is, Jackie's story eventually leads to confrontation with Shauna. See, unknown to Jackie, it turns out that her boyfriend Jeff has actually been sleeping with Shauna the whole time. See, while they're stranded out there, Jackie continues to notice strange behaviors from Shauna and how Shauna seems to be distancing herself from her. Eventually, it's revealed to her that Shauna is pregnant, and Jackie is not only taken back by this, but pretty supportive and happy for her. That is, until it's later revealed through Jackie's snooping that Shauna was actually pregnant with Jackie's boyfriend's baby. Jackie was reasonably upset about this, especially considering the fact that she tried to take some agency for herself and sleep with the one other guy out there in the wilderness, Travis, and was interrupted by Shauna and the other girls literally pulling him out and hunting him through the woods. Cut to the very next day when all the girls seem to be ignoring any of that happened in the first place. Jackie has finally had enough and decides to grow some backbone in the most inopportune time she could, challenging the girls on their most recent behaviors and Shauna for how crappy of a person she really is. This argument is also very indicative to us of how neglectful and ignorant Jackie is to her friends and loved ones' feelings. Interestingly enough, this argument culminates in Jackie telling Shauna to leave. And throughout the story of season 1, the wilderness finally turned Shauna into more of a bold character with a bigger backbone, her stepping up and challenging Jackie to leave instead. What doesn't help is some of the other girls, Mari specifically, call out Jackie for feeling so separated from the girls. This results in Jackie storming out of the cabin and deciding she's gonna sleep outside for the night. And like everybody knows, this leads to her becoming the first official cannibalistic act of the girls and becoming Snackie. See, Jackie is sort of the lamb and sacrificial offering for the girls and their first big step away from any sort of normal societal standards. And while things only really get worse for them out there, Jackie's role in the story is far from over. See, throughout the rest of the series, we see that Jackie's presence continues to haunt the girls in many different ways. In the immediate aftermath, Jackie is frozen and unable to be buried because the ground is too hard, and Shauna develops a very unhealthy relationship with her dead body. And even post-cannibalization, she still continued to haunt the girls in the cave hallucinations, messing with both Aquila and Van, but yet again, Shauna. And this continuous torture of Shauna goes and follows her all the way up until the adult timeline, where in these continued desperate and stress-inducing situations, Shauna continues to see Jackie messing with her. But an interesting thing to note is the version of Jackie that haunts Shauna is sort of this version of Jackie that Shauna feels Jackie is. But if you rewatch the series to Jackie's presence when she was actually still alive, you can see that she's not as malicious and petty as Shauna built her up to be in her mind. It also is interesting to note that when Shauna is first hallucinating Jackie, she's very supportive, maybe lightly teasing Shauna, but very much helping Shauna get through her grief. But as the story progresses and Shauna becomes more paranoid and more aggressive herself, Jackie's hallucinations/hauntings become more aggressive. An interesting juxtaposition is the character Callie, Shauna's daughter. Callie is a character who perfectly captures what Jackie could have been if she never really got stranded out in the wilderness. And while seeing how season 3 is going, that is subject to change, I do think it's interesting how Jackie's presence and life has still continued to surround Shauna up until this day. Jackie was arguably one of the most normal girls that went out there into the wilderness, and it only makes sense that one of the most basic normal characters would be the first thing to get rid of when it comes to devolving into a cannibalistic cult. Jackie's role within the story is arguably one of the most necessary aspect of the entire series as a whole, and not just in the 96 timeline, but in the adult timeline as well, helping push Shauna into returning to this villainous role that she was while she was stranded out there in the wilderness. The role herself has given the actor Ellapurnell a lot to work with in regards to being an innocent little lamb and being a malevolent spirit that does not stop messing with Shauna. And I think we can all agree we're Team Jackie in regards to messing with Shauna. That being said, that was my breakdown of Jackie. If there's anything I missed, feel free to let me know, because her character does have a lot of context and a lot of little nuances that are hard to point out sometimes. And while some seem to very easily misunderstand her character, I think it's it's interesting how much depth her character actually has for what little screen time she actually took up of the story. Either way, that was my breakdown of Jackie Taylor. Hopefully you guys appreciated it. I appreciate your support and your feedback. Either way, have a good rest of your guys' day. And remember, if you feel like pouting, do it in a corner and not outside right before winter hits.